Hello, my name is Reese Kaya Kamayang, and you're watching rptv. The planning group of the Regent Park Social Development Plan, SDP, has the arduous task of painstakingly attending to the various events and projects undertaken by the four working groups of the SDP: Community Building Working Group, Employment and Economic Development Working Group, Safety Working Group, and the Communications Working Group. A perfect example of one such issue is the matter having food available at SDP meetings. Members of the SDP consider food an integral part of these community meetings. Food plays a crucial role in community meetings for several reasons: social bonding, cultural expression, hospitality, facilitates discussion, sustenance, and tradition and ritual. The City of Toronto does not want to fund food at SDP meetings. Waleed Kogali Ali, a planning meeting attendee, argued that these costs were creditable expenditures that have always been a part of the SDP budget, and that the planning committee draft a letter to the city stating their position. A little later, it was revealed that city had actually said they would provide funding for food if people demonstrated a need. Determining who is ultimately responsible for providing food, as well as numerous other considerations, is part of the work of the SDP planning meeting group. Let's go and see how the meeting went.
Let's review the agenda. We wanted to start with the April 25th meeting. We have a number of pieces on that. Budget, purpose, and some of the more detailed pieces. We have a piece on business cases for our operating funding for the SDP, which we did address last week, but the idea is to see how we can follow up on the conversation last week and see where we go with it. And to share some more information that also follows up from last week's meeting. And some time for the SDP strategic planning. And a review of the survey circulation, like that. How are we going to circulate the survey that Abba and Jeff prepared for us with our input? And then lastly, a piece, I think that's lastly, I'm not quite sure. Lastly, a piece on evaluations and the goals and objectives of this committee. Yes, not lastly. The last piece would just we wanted to create a space. There was this really unfortunate news on Tuesday, the tragic event of the deaths of killings of two members of a family, and just a space to share around that and see what kind of support, if any, that might come through this body. Obviously, this has affected the community in a lot of different ways. So this obviously would be one of many spaces in which this is being reflected on or discussed. So that's the agenda we're proposing. Any thoughts, comments on it? Any proposals for other agenda? Welcome here, Adonis. We're just going through the agenda. We just went through it. Do we have anybody who would like to facilitate next week? Or do you have? I don't believe we have. I mean, Alona, I think your name has been on the list. I'm not sure if how you feel about facilitating. Is that something you want to do, or?
Alona, I'm not sure if you know, but you're muted. There you go.
Lately I've been getting sick on and off, so I'm a little worried that you'll put me on the list and then I won't be able to do it. Like last week, I was really ill. I came down with a bad cold, and I wasn't even online, period. I never went on email even. This meeting, everything. So I'm not sure. Maybe in the summertime when the weather is not so unpredictable,
Oh, that's affecting your health, eh?
Yeah, I have COPD, and when I catch a cold, I get really sick.
Yeah. Okay. Well, why don't we so let's consider that for another time. But so I don't believe we have another facilitator. Ismail, correct me if I'm wrong.
So
the-
according to the list, well, Inez, so basically I need to update this list, Joel, because Inez won't be facilitating for as long as Regent Park Cafe is going on. Next would have been Leia, but I'm not sure she's going to be attending. I could reach out to Marlene, and then if Marlene's unable to facilitate, then it would be Michael Rosenberg facilitating next week. Next week.
Okay. Shall we do that then? You want to, could you reach out to Marlene, Ismail?
Sure. Okay.
Michael, are you prepared to facilitate next week if we don't have Marlene?
Yeah.
Great.
Great. This one, if you could go through this one, Ismail, I'd appreciate it.
Sure. So this item is the upcoming SDP events and meetings. I just wanted to quickly go over next week's events. So on March 18th, we have a communications working group meeting at 5 p.m. On March 19th, we have the agenda planning at 3:30 as usual. And then we have EED at 5 p.m. And then on March 21st, the Thursday, we have planning committee at 1 p.m. So next week's planning committee, this meeting will be at 1 p.m. And that's all I have here on the SDP calendar.
Okay.
And yeah.
Thank you. Okay, I'm not, is anybody aware of updates on city staff and councillor meetings? No.
No, sir.
Were you going to speak, Alona?
Yeah, Michael's name is spelt wrong.
Oh, thanks.
Sorry.
There we are.
Okay, let's just take a break now. I think there is some decision even in this item. I don't believe we've completely landed on the purpose for this meeting, if I recall correctly from last meeting. Would others agree with that? And if so, we would need to make sure we land on that decision about how we're going to frame the meeting. That's my take on it. And we don't have a quorum.
We don't. So, Joe,
Are you talking about the April 25th meeting?
Yes, the first agenda item is the April 25th meeting.
Well,
Ismail, go ahead. And then Michael, you can go.
So I would like to propose just for the April 25th meeting, if I can start with the information sharing. So things like the location and what we decided on back on December 7th for what the April meeting would be and what the June meeting would be. Just again, information sharing, and then anytime we land on a decision-making thing, I could just skip it and leave it. We can either revisit it later this meeting when we have more residents, or we can save it for a future meeting.
All right. People okay with that? So we'd sort of jump around in the agenda a bit potentially. If we get to points where we want to make decisions and we don't have a quorum, then we won't, but we'll be prepared to come back to it. I mean, I am just repeating Ismail, but I just want to underline that. Okay, sounds like that's all right. Welcome, Sarah Jane. So go ahead, Ismail. So yeah, Sarah, just a note for new people. Sarah Jane is a resident, so we have 3 residents here now.
Thank you. I think we had Michael who had to speak before I begin. Michael?
no, I think you could just do like review, but I'm not sure we came to any actual conclusions about the purpose, but we'll get to that when we get to it.
Yeah, go ahead, Ismail.
Got it. Okay, so folks, updates regarding the report back meeting. So April 25th is a report back meeting and the location has been confirmed. Fareed got back to me and he said we do have the space available for April 25th. And so we'll be doing it at the Daniel Spectrum living room like we did the November 27th progress report meeting and the meeting prior to that. Budget, we don't have anything here in the budget bracket as of yet because for those of you who attended last week's planning meeting, we have yet to submit business cases. And when we do submit business cases and figure out the operating budget, we'll know how much we want to allocate for this meeting. And then that would then have to get approved by city staff before we can actually know what the budget would be for this. So hopefully we can streamline that process so we get to hear back quickly. And then we can start with catering and other expenses. Up until then, we can't really do anything for that. Sarah Jane, sorry, did you have a question regarding this meeting?
And I'm taking you back, but you don't have to discuss it now. I just want to make a note, sort of as Michael did. I need a review of the consensus thing. I mean, since I'm the third market resident and we don't have enough market residents, I don't understand. I mean, there's a lot of discussion about consensus when somebody doesn't like something, and then it's sort of like I feel like it's being held up for hostage until everybody agrees, and then I noticed it differed the last month. So I just like to put that on the minutes at some point to review that. We don't have enough market residents anyway, but anyway, I meant to say that before you ended, but I hadn't got myself oriented on the, and I'm sorry I missed the minute of silence too, but anyway, we'll.
Well, thanks for the reminder, Sarah Jane. I did skip that till later and then I skipped it completely. So I really didn't mean to do that. So let me just do a couple things here.
That's really important, that minute of silence. I think it should be up top in this meeting, but anyway.
Yeah, let me just do a couple things here, Sarah Jane. So you're asking for a review of our consensus decision-making process at some point at another meeting. Okay, good enough. Fair enough. Just want to note what I said when you joined is that we now have 3 residents. So we have 2 TCHC residents and 1 you're the single market resident at the moment. But we do know that often people join as the meeting goes on. So what we've decided to do, Sarah Jane, so we don't have quorum. So we're not going to make any decisions at the moment. But we can. We're going through the agenda and we'll be hearing what people hearing information pieces. So that's what we've started with doing. So now I see you there, Adonis, but I really do apologize, people. It's true that the moment of silence is quite important, and I apologize that I didn't bring us back to it. I just wanted to do it when there were some more people in the room. Unless Adonis, if this is urgent, but what I'd prefer to do now is just move to the moment of silence. So yeah, we did have an event that has really shaken the community. 2 members of the same family were killed in a shooting incident on Tuesday by another member of their family. It's very, very painful story. It's really shocked all of us, shocked the community, especially those that are closest to the family. So just in a spirit of just acknowledging that and marking it in a very respectful way, I'd just ask us to take a minute of silence. Sarah Jane, do you want to speak to this before we start? You're muted, Sarah Jane.
I'm a bit of a mess. I mean, and that's part of the reason. I mean, this is the first time it's 2 blocks from me. I was about a half a block from when it happened. And I know someone very well that was involved in it. This is the first time that's happened to me in Regent Park. And I'm already not walking at night. So I just want to say that that came very, very, very close to me.
Okay, thanks for sharing, Sarah Jane. We do have a space at the end of the agenda. We're actually going to come back to this. We
Okay.
decided to put it at the end of the agenda, so let's just take our moment of silence. And if people do want to share anything, we will have a time for that.
Joel, I'm sorry
Thanks,
to join
everybody.
late.
Thanks, everybody, for taking this moment of silence. As I say, we will return to address the situation and the tragic event of Tuesday at the end of the meeting. So welcome Waleed, welcome Rabia. Just note to everybody, we do now have 5 residents here, 1 market resident and no, 2 market residents, my apologies, 2 market residents and a TCH, 3 TCH residents. So we do have a quorum. And so now I'll go back to you, Adonis. Thank you for putting your hand up again. Go ahead, Adonis.
Joel, just remind me what the quota is, the quorum.
So I don't have it in front of me, but so if anybody wants to,
I
you
thought
want
it
to
was
just
3
address it, go ahead, Ismail.
Oh, go ahead.
So it's a minimum of 4 residents,
Oh, 4.
or sorry, 4 residents total, and then at least 1 market and at least 1 TCH.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. So carry on, Ismail.
Thank you. Okay. So I was speaking on the budget. So again, we have to wait until after we do our business cases and we figure out our operating budget before we can determine how much we'll be spending on this and if it gets approved. I would actually suggest that to speed up the process, perhaps we create a separate business case just for this upcoming April 25th meeting as a standalone item. Submit that so we can ask that specific business case gets approved or
Hi, Sandra.
gets
It's
worked on
Miguel.
ahead of time.
I
Miguel, sorry, can I ask you to mute
acknowledge
yourself?
receiving your
You want to make me a
your
host, and then
emails
either of us
and a
could
full message.
mute people if needed,
Sure.
Ismail?
Let me do that. Thank you. So yeah, I would like to suggest that we create a business case just for the April 25th report back meeting. That will be in addition to all the other business cases that we submit, but I'm just saying we do a separate one for this so we can hear back sooner and we can get started with the book with you know, the catering and other expenses that we have to cover the cost of for this meeting. Maybe I should stop there. Joe, what's your suggestion? Maybe I should see if what members think about that and see if they agree with that suggestion.
Yeah, why don't we, so we can start with any questions for clarification, and then we can let's see if we want to land on that as a decision.
I need
So
explanation of what a business case is.
So Sarah Jane, do you remember last year when Denise was stepping back, she asked the planning committee to write a bunch of budgets. So we had 4 different budgets: barrier reduction, I think one was tech, and there was a third one. So those were business cases. So Michael at the last planning committee meeting, so just last week, asked the planning committee to submit, or SDP as a whole rather, to submit business cases, which would include our operational budget for the year of 2024.
Oh, it's
He said
separate.
that-
I see, yeah.
So this is just a piece of that.
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry to interrupt.
No worries, no worries. Any other questions regarding this item before we call for consensus? No questions?
Okay.
And
Any
so now,
concerns?
sorry, Joel.
No, that's good. Any concerns, folks, about this proposal? I would want to note that the city has said, at least to date, that they're not willing to fund food for SDP meetings. I don't do that. I should maybe clarify it, and that did include these broad community meetings, I believe. And so it may be that we might have constraints, or that we might seek funding from other sources as well, but just to say that that might feed into the business case for this event. Waleed.
Yeah, I would like to formally request that we as a committee, as an SDP planning committee, write to the city that we would like for those costs to be covered. Those are legitimate costs that have always been included as part of the 50K budget. I don't want us to just agree whatever the city said. Could we please do that? Like at least make a decision that we want the costs that are usually associated with this meetings to be covered, just like in previous years.
I think I spoke wrongly in terms of summing up what the city said last week. They did say they'd be willing to make specific fund food for people who have who demonstrate a need for it, who request that support. So that was a bit of a, it's not that they would not fund any food. Adonis.
Yeah, Joel, I'm not sure that, just a clarification. I think when we talked about the food, were for the committee meetings, the working committee meetings, that the city said they wouldn't fund. But I thought the stakeholders meeting that that budget should be in there for food. In any case, I agree with Waleed that we should put in the food budget for the stakeholders meetings as part of it. Even the city provides food when they meet with the community. So, yeah.
Okay, I just wanted to name that as that was part of last week's meeting, but could you clarify that, Ismail? Do you have that in the notes? Or I believe I checked back on that, but if I'm not right about that, then it's a different, because I'm not focusing on food as a whole right now. I am just focusing on this April 25th meeting. I thought I should mention that in regards to the April 25th meeting, but if I'm wrong, then it actually doesn't bear on this meeting at all.
And Joel, I would just like to say, so I will look at last week's notes to see what the decision was with regards to food. But in the order of speakers, we have Michael, then Miguel, and then Sarah Jane. Just a reminder.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
So while Ismail's checking that, go ahead, Michael. Michael, do you want to speak, or it doesn't look to me like you are speaking. We can't hear you. I'm going to go to Miguel. Michael, if you are able to speak, I'll come back to you after Miguel or after Sarah Jane. Miguel.
Yes. What Richard mentioned last week is that our table will have to figure it out a way to register those residents who require assistance with food. I don't know how this process is going to look like. I think I wanted to ask Richard if we had to show our ODSP checks to prove that we are poor in order to qualify to get food supports. I don't know what else to say, that I find it very convenient that they are doing some cuts or restrictions that will impact our community should we go into hybrid mode or in person. I wonder if this is a tactic to cut cost on the back of the poor to help other departments that are being asked to put more money on the police funding. Thank you.
Joe, before we move to Sarah Jane, can I respond to Miguel?
Sure.
I was going to respond to Miguel too, so why don't you wait?
No, I just wanted to, sorry, Sergeant, I just wanted to remind Miguel, at last week's meeting, Richard said that it would be up to us as the SDP to decide how we would identify food insecure individuals.
Yes,
So he
that's
left it up
correct.
to us. He didn't say that it would have to be, showing the ODSP papers or anything. We just wanted to remind you of that, that's all.
Oh, but how do you want to believe it? Anybody can come to you and say, I'm poor, I need food, or how is it gonna work?
Well,
Yeah,
Have
that's
to
a
be
good question,
up
but
to
we
us.
don't have an answer right now, right?
Right, we don't have an
But
answer for it, but-
I was listening to the meeting with great attention.
Yeah, yeah.
so I
Um,
say
Go
that I,
ahead, Sergeant. Or just like Michael, did you want to speak? I think maybe Michael doesn't want to speak.
I don't have much to say about this except that we should decide if we're going to make a request from organizations to provide funding for this meeting, because it kind of goes both ways. We could feel like that doesn't help us get more money from the city, or we could feel like if we don't start asking others right away, then this will drag on, and then soon the city will tell us we don't have as much money as we want, and we won't be able to do anything about it. So the decision on when we ask organizations for funding for this meeting, if we do, when we do, is a question that should be answered soon.
Sarah Jane?
well, I don't know whether this is what you said, Joel, but you said that those that are in need should get food. And I agree with Miguel. Everybody gets food. And if we have to arrange either potluck or everybody of us contributes so everybody gets food, I don't want people singled out because they're hungry. Everybody's hungry. I mean, I learned that from my childminding the last time I was childminding there, when somebody wanted food and didn't want to stay for the meeting. And I said something really I'm so ashamed of. You should eat it here, or why don't you have food at home? And I mean, she probably doesn't have food at home. And people are hungry. And those that aren't hungry should feed the people that are. And that we should do this as a community, build a community around food. I think that we should ask for it right away. I'm not a politician. I'm not very good at politicians. I'm extremely bad with politicians. We should ask for it as a matter of principle, because it's rude that they're not going to provide it and everybody else does. And if they refuse, that we as a community provide food for everybody and contribute to that. Don't distinguish between who's hungry and who isn't.
Okay, I'm gonna try to bring together some of the stuff that I've heard. So I think that there's a proposal to write to the city, and specifically on this, I'm gonna say, let's not deal with that now. That's sort of part of the broader 50K money. Let's just talk, this agenda item is about this table. Maybe, but the point is to put a request to the city. And the proposal is to put a business case to the city in regards to this event. So I think the thing that would fulfill that proposal of asking for the food funding would be to put it in the business case. This wasn't said, but I'm going to add that why don't we just put a note to the effect of that we've heard what the city's saying, what we have for this rationale, we would like to nevertheless request. And that also doesn't, another suggestion that I heard was that we nevertheless request some agencies in the neighborhood to also fund this meeting. And so at the same time, we could, the fact that we're asked, we could put the same business case to any potential funder and say, this is the way we're organizing this event. We have these various items, and we'd ask if you could contribute a certain amount to it. You could try that approach. What else? In general, I've heard the sentiment that we should address the people's need for food in a way that's not stigmatizing. That's not focusing on any, that's sort of singling out any individual or group of people. So finding a way to do that would be, I think, a thing that there sounds like there's some proposals around that. So, any comments on that series of that summary with that puts forward a few different proposals? Michael.
So, do we know if the city would find it strange if we asked for funding for one meeting rather than putting the business case for expenses for the SDP as a whole? I mean, is that going to make it easier for us, or is it going to make it harder for us?
Yeah. Okay. Can I just welcome Kevin and Colin to the meeting? Adonis, are you okay if I respond to that from last week's meeting, or do you want to go first?
No, go ahead.
The only point I'd make to that is that we were encouraged by the city to make a single business case in regards to honoraria for co-chairs. So we were not encouraged to make a business case, as far as I recall, to the stakeholders for the stakeholders table or for this meeting on April 25th. But it would be a second specific business case. And the rationale that Ismail's putting forward right now is that it is in order to get the ball moving on the funding for this particular event because it's coming up. So that's that. And then Adonis.
Yeah, my thoughts, Joel, is that we should put it in the single business case as long as we could get that out fairly soon. I mean, the city can decide what items on there as well. They don't have to do a blanket approval of each one. They could say, okay, we're gonna fund this, and we know it's coming up. We'll fund this one while we think about it, right? I think we should just put it one business case with all our requests in, with a special note that if we're doing food for the stakeholders, and we should make a distinction too, because I'm not talking about the working group food for working group meetings, although that could be something that the group decides, but I'm talking about the stakeholders table, food for the stakeholders table. I consider that important, and that's what I would put in for. And I understand where the city's coming from with food for committee meetings and saying that the network organizations involved in the working group should support the working group meetings with food. So I understand that, but I don't get it with the SDP stakeholders table where the whole community comes together. The city has always provided food when they meet with town halls and so on. It doesn't make sense that they recognize it as a barrier to participation. So why would we do any different?
Okay, thanks. So I'm going to suggest that we like that does make it part of the larger agenda item, which is down the agenda a little bit. Let's hold off on that piece for now, and we'll see where we go with it. But we should ensure we have a way to act in a timely way on this particular event. So that was one piece, was the how we do a business case for the city. And I think the piece about seeking funding from other agencies as well, I think that they're so closely tied. Let's bring that up again when we get down to the 50K, if folks are okay with that. Was there one other piece that was, oh yeah, that just the principle of ensuring that we do whatever we offer, we do it in a way that's not singling out any person or group of people. Is that something that, is there any concerns or comments about that principle? Is that something that we can agree on, that we would, that would be one of our goals, is to do whatever food we offer, that we do it in a way that's inclusive. Okay. So that's that piece. So let's move on from budget then.
I also just wanted to bring to attention, in the notes, this is what we have. I know it was on the screen for a while, but I'm just going to read it out.
Can I say something quickly?
Well, let's let Ismail go, and then you can go after Alona.
It
Thank
was
you.
about what we were talking about, the food and that.
Yeah, I think Ismail's still, Ismail's not changing the topic, or are you, Ismail, like sort of relevant to that?
No, this is on the same topic about food. I just wanted to make the clarification about the stakeholders table. So I found in the notes that city did explicitly say that they will be supporting the stakeholders table. But we don't have any explicit notes where if they would support food or not. So I think what Adonis was proposing, and I know, Joel, that you said that we'd wait for the next item, but where we included in the business case, we'll include food, and then we'll leave it up to the city to decide whether or not they'll approve that, and then we'll take the necessary steps thereafter. Items currently being funded. So what he did list off was the admin coordinator, honor areas, and then again, he made mention of the stakeholders table. So because he mentioned it twice, I do think it's a good, I don't want to assume, but I feel like we have good chances of securing the food for those meetings. I don't think he's going to say no to that, but there's only one way to find out. And I'll end it with that. Alona?
I was just gonna say that it would be a total invasion of people's privacy if you're asking them to show documents and such, because those are personal and private. You know, it's nobody's business how you get your money. You know, you could be out there robbing grocery stores for food, but it's nobody's business.
Yeah, I think that's kind of the sentiment of the group that I'm hearing, Alona, that we want to be inclusive, and we don't want to ask people to share things that are not appropriate.
Thank you.
Okay, so can we move on now to the purpose of the meeting?
So we have, for the purpose of the meeting, I was reviewing when we first brought this up on December 7th. And so I'll go ahead and I'll open the notes for that. So on December 7th, when we were initially planning on figuring out dates for the April meeting and the June meeting, we landed on the fact that we would have, hold on, why don't you want to go there? Sorry, folks, it's just loading. Michael, I hear you. I'm sure Joe will ask you to speak once I am done presenting here. And I found it. Here we are. So this was that's the reference group. Okay, so here it is. Set dates for each major upcoming event in the new year. So we had a report back meeting. We decided April 24th. And then the next stakeholders table meeting will be June. So based on those notes, this meeting will be the report back meeting where we have funded projects reporting back as well as the working group. So it sounds to me like it's going to be similar to the November 27th meeting. I know that was a progress report. Yes, Michael.
Okay, so officially the November 27th wasn't the progress report, but this one is. But we didn't
Sorry, Michael,
decide.
this one's supposed to be the report back.
Oh, I see. Well, I prefer we just call it report back, but I don't think they're two different things. The whichever we're calling it, it was always held in March. November was going to be a regular stakeholders table meeting, but we didn't have a lot of decision-making items ready for that meeting, so we did reports. But doing reports is still within the mandate of a stakeholders table meeting if we don't have any decision-making items. So that was officially a regular stakeholders table meeting, and this one is the report back meeting, whatever we choose to call it. I prefer the term report back, but whatever we're calling it is what we're calling it, but this is the meeting. So I would definitely prefer that we do not have decision-making items at this meeting. Now, the question is, what do we report on? I would like to see the evaluation report be a major part of the meeting. Other people have suggested funding, funded projects. Other people have suggested that we continue the practice of having the working groups report. I think there was at least one or two other potential items, and I certainly don't think we can do all of them. Something that came up earlier today was to also have a section for getting input or results from the community, so we're not just reporting. So that's already about 5 potential items that could be at this meeting. And we have to decide which ones it's going to be. It's a decision. It's not a given, or this is the way we always do it, or this is what happened at some other meeting. We have to make a decision, and I would suggest that we do not make a decision to just do exactly what was done at previous meetings, because we've already got at least 3 potential different or new things. And I think we should do at least one of the different things rather than just making it exactly the same as it has been in the past. So I would say that good items to have at this meeting are the evaluation report and the response or suggestion session. Whether that means we can do all of the other things as well, I don't know. But I would actually give priority to those 2 new items and put in as many of the sort of standing or typical report back items as we can.
Adonis.
Yeah, I agree with Michael, except for one thing. So the only thing I would add is to give context to the SDP by starting off with each of the working groups doing very quick presentations about the working groups and what we do for the community. And then bulk of the meeting goes to evaluations to have their report back from the evaluation committee and what their findings are. And then if they could add a feedback session of something, a way of getting information from the community about whatever pieces that the evaluation committee feels is important, that to me would be great if we could do those 3 things. If Michael will have a friendly amendment to his proposal, that's what I would go for. And let's make it as a proposal rather a continuing debate. So the proposal, if Michael's agreeable, is that it starts off with a overview of the working groups, and then to the bulk of the meeting is the evaluation, and then with a piece of feedback, getting feedback from the community. Led by the evaluation.
Michael, you want to respond to that?
So it was almost my intention to keep at least some of the other item like the working groups, but just shorten it. So I completely agree with that. And the other point about whether the feedback session should be focused mainly on evaluation, I hadn't really even thought about that. I wouldn't try to exclude people from giving other types of feedback, but maybe it can be sort of focused on evaluation.
My only point would be it be facilitated by evaluations, whatever that is, so that it could be added as part of the report, getting feedback about whatever it is, but they lead that process rather than just asking everybody about anything. So a facilitated discussion was what I'm calling for.
So
basically, I agree with that. I would just make sure there's a little bit of room for other if something else comes up. But yes, I agree with that. I agree with Adonis's amendments.
I think part of the discussion last week was also, like, there was the proposal that we have report backs from the funded projects. So that was just part of the discussion. So I think the question about, like, it sounds to me like we don't really have a full meeting in what we've talked about, and maybe discussing the purpose might help us to decide what the full meeting would be. Like a brief, if I'm understanding it correctly, brief overviews of each of the working groups would be, 20 minutes or something total. Evaluations, I don't know if evaluations would be how long they'd be planning to speak for, but it sounds to me like we could do more of a report back, like to how long evaluations would speak together with feedback from the community. Is that the full meeting, or is there space for other report back pieces? Go ahead, Donis.
My proposal is make it the full meeting. Yeah, because to try to do too much, you get nothing. Make it the full meeting, make it on the report back from the evaluation, facilitated discussions led by evaluation that feeds back into the evaluation. Of course, anything that comes up could be raised as well, but like really make it our whole meeting. That's a proposal on the table. And this is something we have to decide today in order to plan, right?
I didn't hear you, Donis. You seemed to freeze for a moment.
Oh, sorry. I was just saying that this is something we have to make sure we make a decision today in order to plan.
Waleed.
Thank you, Joel. So from my recollection of the last meeting and the conversation we've had today is that some of us would like for the meeting to be a report back, just focused on report back. Some of us would like to include some items for decision making, specifically when it comes to implementing the documents that we introduced at the last stakeholders table. I'm comfortable with with us just moving forward as a report back meeting. I think we'll need some time to put forward other decision making items for when is our next meeting? Ishmael, just remind us.
In June. I'm not sure we land on a date, but June.
June. Okay, so if it's going to be for June, it might. I'm worried it might be too late. What I'm hoping is that resolutions could be put forward at the stakeholders table, especially with regards to the SDP and funds for community groups or residents who are trying to secure funding for priorities related to the SDP. I'm worried if June is going to be too late. So could we at least maybe come to a compromise that we could dedicate the majority of the meeting for report backs from the working groups, and then have some decision-making items as well, like maybe the terms of reference piece with the shaping the SDP culture documents incorporated, and then the SDP refresh as well, because I'm deeply concerned if we just delay it to June. Events like that I care about, like and many of my neighbors, like Sunday in the Park, and other important initiatives are not going to be adequately resourced if we don't take a position as a community on what we would like to see. So that's where I'm at, to be honest. I want to say yes, that it should just be a report back meeting, but I feel like there's some urgent items that we as a community need to decide on and communicate to all the relevant stakeholders.
We have Sarah Jane, and then Adonis, and then Michael.
Okay, I think it should be, reporting from the groups should be absolutely minimal, but that's what we did in November. That's exactly what we did in November. So we want something different, as Michael said. Evaluation's good. I can't remember some of the other things, but not reporting back from the working group, because we did that November 27th. I was upstairs, but that's why I was upstairs. I think people need an opportunity to talk, not just to listen.
Adonis.
Yeah, and so to Waleed's point, I think because we don't know a lot of that information, we don't have a lot of time. Waleed, we only have weeks before we have to organize everything. We could always, as a stakeholders table, schedule another, planning committee schedule another stakeholders table in May if we get organized around what decisions have to be made. So I don't feel that there needs to be a rush on this one. I think it's more valuable that we hear from evaluations, engage the community so that they know what the stakeholders at table's about. And in a sense, we're preparing them for those decisions that come later down on the road. And I agree with Sarah Jane, but we just need to give context for a lot of people who may not know, are people who need to be reminded of what the SDP is all about. So again, a short context at the beginning, focus on the evaluation, focus on getting feedback, and hopefully in an interactive way from the community about pieces that the evaluation committee needs to know, or we need to know.
We need to find somebody who will be short.
Okay.
Just a moment, folks. Just wait. We got a speakers list. Sarah Jane, just reminding you.
Okay.
But also do want to welcome people. Welcome Shayna. Welcome Temi Tope. Temi Tope. I'm not sure I know how to pronounce your name properly. So if you'd like to introduce yourself, you're welcome to. Welcome Leonard.
Hello.
And so let's go to Waleed.
No,
Sorry, Michael. No, thanks, Michael. Yes, you're right. Yeah, Michael, and then Waleed.
Okay, so as far as decision-making items are concerned, I would have a compromise of that maybe we could come up with one sort of, for lack of a better term, emergency resolution that reflects sort of whatever we feel that we need to communicate to the city. But I would not like to put like heavy or complex items on an agenda that's mainly not about decision making. So things like the terms of reference, I think we'll need a bit more time to incorporate anything into it and bring it to the June meeting. I would not try to put something that's like a detailed document onto a meeting where we clearly will not have a lot of time for decision making. So if we can get most of those items to June and just maybe come up with one resolution that sort of maybe expresses whatever we feel should come out as quickly as possible, but not to do the detailed work at this meeting of complex resolutions.
Michael, I accept that compromise. If we could just have one resolution focused on some critical piece, which is the funding of groups that has been paused for now, I'll be happy with that, and we can move the changes to the terms of reference to the June meeting. So I'm okay with that compromise.
Would just want to so stepping away from being facilitator for a moment. If we want to make a communication about wanting community events to be funded, essentially we're making a comment on the refresh process, which is the process that's been put in place of the funding process going forward. So, I mean, to have any action out of that, I think we're pointing towards a much more complex thing. I mean, there is a refresh process happening. And I wonder if maybe it might be like we haven't really tried to contest the way that process goes forward, since we haven't really been part of organizing it. But I wonder if we might want to have people feed into that process in as many ways as possible, and that feedback is happening now, or not now, but in the relatively near future, I think. And people can speak into the need for community funding that way, and that would, and perhaps that might be the framing for if we do something in the community meeting. That maybe would be the framing, that this is a space to give input into that refresh process and emphasize the urgency of having some funding. Anyway, I'm just trying to think through ways of engaging with that as it's happened, unless we want to actually address the process as proposed, then I think that's a bit of a different question.
Hello?
Shayna, and then Michael.
Shana, did you still want to speak?
Yes, I
go
do.
ahead, Shayna.
Sorry.
Go ahead, Shayna.
Sorry, I'm having trouble with this thing. I don't know what we're talking about. I kind of feel lost because I came in late. Sorry about that. But I had an issue that was really bothering me that I wanted to talk about. So is this the good time to talk about it, Waleed?
Well, Shayna, right now we're discussing the purpose. No, the purpose and the agenda, sort of the broad agenda of the community meeting we're going to have at the end of April. So, Waleed, maybe you understand what Shayna is thinking about, but we want to stay within that framework. That's what we're discussing right now.
Shana, it's connected to this item, but there's going to be an opportunity to reflect later on. So just maybe you can share that then. But I just want to say that it's very clear to me.
You.
No, Shana. It's very clear to me that residents did not ask for the funds for 2024 to be paused. This was a unilateral decision made by the city. We are now dealing with some consequences, in my opinion, of that decision. I have been approached by many groups. I've got emails from different residents wanting to get involved or find out how they could articulate their opinion of that position. If we are going to have a successful SDP stakeholders meeting, I think that space needs to be created, because people do not just want to hear report backs. They also want to have a conversation about a decision made by the city that's affecting all of us. In some way or in whatever ways. So that's why I'm in support of Michael's recommendation that the meeting doesn't have to be entirely a decision-making meeting. We could have report backs from the evaluation, the committees, or from other the working groups if needed, to highlight what the SDP is all about, just like Adonis articulated early in the meeting. I'm very convinced that's a good idea. But I think it's important for residents to have a forum in this upcoming meeting in April to express how they feel about the SDP refresh and the pause of the funds. I'm worried that if we delay it to May or June, May we might not be organized by then. June might be too late, because a lot of those initiatives that are usually funded in the year will not get off the ground. And then we've been told clearly by the city that this funding will not be released until after the summer, after the SDP refresh. So what? That's October, November, December, like that. That is preposterous, in my opinion. So let's at least allow residents, allow stakeholders at the SDP with the opportunity to express how they feel about the SDP refresh. And that doesn't mean that we condone the city process. We're hearing back from residents and stakeholders, and that could actually inform our communication with the city about what Regent Park residents want. So I would like for us to build consensus on this. I'm comfortable with having just one decision-making item, one emergency resolution that we should consider, and then leave the rest of it with the discussion related to the process and other decision-making items to a future meeting in June. But this is next month. If we don't make a decision soon as a collective, or if we don't create that space for residents, then I'm worried that, you know, the process would just the city-led process would just continue without us having any voice or any say. And that's really, really, really problematic in my opinion.
Hello?
Michael, and then Adonis, and then Miguel.
Okay, so my concerns about the process are not necessarily exclusively related to the funding, but in terms of my general sort of attitude towards it, I'm fairly similar to Waleed in certain respects. I definitely, of course, people will and can and should go to the refresh meetings and communicate with them. But I definitely do not support the idea of sort of presenting that as the opportunity, and we're not going to provide any other opportunities, and we're not even going to do a strategic plan. And I don't want it to head in that direction. I want us to, of course, people will participate in the city's process. They're the city, they're big and they're important. But I don't want to see us abdicating other things we could do to bring the community towards some conclusions on what we want. And that will come up further in the strategic plan discussion, I hope. But basically, although my concerns are not mainly funding, since typically the city never gave out the year's funding until the end of the year anyways, so we're not even behind by their schedule. We're behind by the schedule we tried to create multiple times and always got derailed for different reasons, some internal and some external. But so I think Waleed is somewhat correct about the funding, but that's not my biggest concern even. But I do generally share the idea that we should not present it as the refresh process is the way for the community to get its ideas across, because I don't think it's shaping up to be that great a process. And we should continue to do the other things, such as the strategic plan.
Adonis, and then Miguel.
Yeah, it's I can see Waleed's point, but again, the stakeholders table, we have a minimum on number of times we meet. We don't need to. We could always put another meeting together based on what had Waleed said about the funding, if we feel that's really important to do so. My fear is that if we put this one proposal on the table, it's the whole entire meeting. People need to know what the question, what the refresh is all about. They need to know why the funding stopped. They need to know. They need to have the city report back on that, or ask questions related to it. Like, to have a really a good discussion about that. It's gonna take time, and I think that's not. I think at this stage, we want to feed into the evaluation. This is the end of our 5 years of funding. We need to get the evaluation out there. We need to know what worked well, what didn't work well, and have people input, residents input about what could be changed, what pieces they don't like, what pieces they liked about it, how could we make it, like, we need those discussions. And this is gonna feed back into why it's important to have funding anyway. So we're trying to put two things together when we're not organized to do that. Let's have the evaluations first. Let's hear what the important things that we accomplish out of the evaluation. Let's hear from residents what they like. And then we have this material to say, hey, we did this in April. We're following up with May. This is what we like to see in terms of continued funding. Why it's this important? Why is the funding important? That to me is 2 steps. Let's do the first step really well, and then do the next step. And we don't have to wait till June. We do April, we get organized, and do another one in May. That's my opinion.
Miguel. Miguel, you are muted.
Yes, thank you. Wow, this is a very interesting topic. I'm trying to figure it out. What are the the programs that have received funding most as risk of being affected by the whole up of funding for the year 2024? Who is most at risk of getting their program derailed? Are there a number of priorities we can put forward so that they continue receiving funding? Because it seems to me it's a big battle to fight the city hall. Since the budget was approved, it's going to be a bit difficult to squeeze more money out of the city. But my concern is which of the people who have applied for funds will be affected in the next 6 months, for instance. Who do we know? Do we have an idea what organizations will have trouble funding? Thank you.
Thank you, Miguel.
Walid, go ahead.
Yeah. So, Miguel, last year, Sunday in the Park received about over $40,000 in funding. This year, we reached out to the city saying, listen, how are we able to apply for funding if you're basically releasing the funding after the summer? That's when Sunday in the Park happens in August.
Right.
So that's
right.
that's one example.
Oh,
Right?
Jesus.
There's a bunch of groups like Regent Park Mental Health. That's one example that emailed me asking to be able to apply for SDP this year. I've redirected them to Jennifer Hoffman from the funding unit for a response. There are many groups that are waiting for access to funding for 2024. And by the way, this money was committed by City Council years ago. The $2.5 million was already committed. So it's nothing to do with the budget. This is money that should have been released for this year. And I think it's important for us as a community to make a decision collectively what we would like to see the city do. We should not be taking directions from city staff. City staff should be taking directions from the community. That's what I strongly believe in. So if we postpone this, I really want to agree with Adonis. Adonis, I have nothing but love and respect for you, my friend. But I'm worried that we're not going to get it done in May. It takes about 2 months to plan a stakeholders meeting, right? It takes time to do it. So I want to agree. I want to say yes, but my intuition is telling me that if we don't do it in April, it's going to be delayed. The summer break is going to happen. Most of the events and programming are not going to be feasible anymore because it's mid-year or late in the summer, and we're just going to have to wait until the SDP refresh process is complete. And I don't want us to wait. I want us to take a position. I want us to course correct by ensuring that we listen to residents and what they want and what these groups want, instead of just waiting and assuming things are going to work out. And I'm not confident in the city staff making recommendations sooner than the end of the summer when it comes to the pause that they talk about, the pause of funds, which is basically no funds have been released since January of 2024 to any new group that wants to access funding. So please, let's just have that one item for discussion and deliberation. And if we make a decision, let's communicate to the city that a decision has been made, yay or nay, and let the city respond to that. But if we wait, I don't want us to wait. I think it's gonna have an impact in our community. That's what I foresee. Thank you.
So folks, we have a couple of different proposals on the table, I guess. Any other thoughts on which direction you would like to go? Michael, did you want to speak?
It seems to me that the ones we've got now are capable of fitting into one meeting. Unless I'm misunderstanding what some of them are, or there's something that I'm not thinking is included, but other people are, or whatever. But I do think we've got a set of items now that can fit into one meeting. So that would be the working group brief reports, not as the full reports as we've done in the past, but brief working group reports, a more substantial evaluation report, a feedback session, and a brief motion that is basically limited to funding issues and is not no other major motions. I think that can be done in one meeting.
Ismail.
I'm sorry, I was just going to repeat the 3 as well, but thank you, Michael, for bringing that up. Just summarizing it back into 3. Could I ask for clarification on one thing? I know Michael just kind of repeated the 3. The third item was the motion to, we said brief motion to what? To resume funding, was it, Willie?
Well, I actually had it as 4 items because I was counting the feedback as a separate item. But so brief working group reports, major evaluation report, community response and suggestions, and then brief funding related motion. That's 4 items.
Adonis, and then I wanted to make a suggestion as well, and so the Ismail and then me.
Since seem to be the main objector, I can live with a motion that's limited to just requesting the city to release the pledge funds for the community so that they could continue the activities of the SDP. So I can live with a motion like that, as long as, you know, it's really limited to a motion and a decision, rather a whole discussion about the refresh, why it's important, why it happened, who's involved, who's making those decisions, why is the city, like, if it's just a straight motion about releasing, I think that's okay. And that could be done fairly quickly. So let's do the 4 that we just discussed. That's my proposal, so that's fine.
Ismail, did you want to say something?
I was just going to go over a time estimate of what each item might take to give everyone some more insights. Is it okay if I do that, Joe?
I think we have consent. If you want to, I don't know if we need to right now. I mean,
Okay, no,
sounds to me like we're coming to consensus.
Yeah, sorry, I wanted to do that before Adonis said what he said, so I guess I don't have to share that anymore.
Okay, folks, so Adonis has summed up a proposal that he's in agreement with. Does everybody understand any questions about it? If there aren't any questions, I'm not going to repeat it. Any concerns about the proposal? Okay, I guess we have a decision that we will.
No, any objections though?
Well, I'm assuming if there's no concerns, there's no objections. Is that, should I do separately? Okay, any objections? Yeah, no, I think we want people to name their concerns too. We don't want people simply to object. We want to know what the issue is. So I'm taking that if there are no concerns, maybe this is the consensus process review that you're asking for, Sarah Jane. Now maybe I'll take this up with you outside, Adonis, and figure out if we should have those as separate stages. Better. But anyway, we do have a decision on this then, that we will have a report back meeting with 1 small decision-making item in it. 4 items. Okay, we can flesh that out in the timing and all more details in future meetings. Thanks, everybody. And I think I'm going to move on right now. we're not going to do other items from this report back meeting unless people feel it's urgent. I think we can do a little bit of follow-up between meetings. Some of this business.
When is our next meeting? 2 weeks?
Next week.
Next week?
Next week at 1 p.m.
I thought we weren't doing any more 1 o'clocks.
We're doing 1 and 3 o'clock.
Okay, I thought the 1 was eliminated. Okay.
We actually eliminated the 5 o'clock, Sarah Jane. Maybe you're confusing it with that one.
I don't know, but I thought we would have eliminated and we weren't going to meet every other week. That's why I kept sending all those emails. But are we meeting every other week or every week?
Every week.
Okay.
Can you move down, please, Ismail?
Joel, before we move on to the next item, I just wanted to confirm with Adonis. Adonis, can I ask you to create the poster again?
To what?
To create the poster again, so I can start sending that out for the save the date.
Okay, sounds good. I need to leave at the meeting now, but yes, definitely.
So I'll send you the details to include in that, and then, okay, so thank you. Okay, Joel, said the next item?
Yeah. So I just want to note, folks, we have 3 items remaining, the budgeting and the business case, which we started discussing, the SDP strategic planning, and just a space to talk about the incident that happened, and just if people want to speak to it. There's no proposal associated with that one. We don't have time for all of them. There's half an hour left. I would suggest maybe for budgeting and business case, do we have is there a proposal here already? I think I'd almost suggest that if we do decide to talk about this, we won't have time for anything else in the meeting. What if we set up a meet? There is but was the proposal last week to set up a meeting outside of planning?
Yes.
And to work on some business cases that way. We do need to get stuff out quickly in regards to the community meeting. We need a name for that community meeting, I guess, but the meeting on April 25th. So maybe I would suggest we just have people who would like to be involved in these business cases to put up their hands, and we'll try to address that outside. Would that work for people? Or is there any other way that people would want to suggest to address this? Okay, so who would like to be part of creating some of these business cases? I would definitely like to be part of one for honoraria at least, and but so talk with people outside. Waleed has his hand up. Others?
Yes.
Michael? Okay, that's what we have for now, and well, the scope of that, I guess we'll decide that in that meeting.
Okay.
In taking into account what we've talked about today and in last week's meeting. There was a proposal here. It's a proposal to reconvene the funding committee, or not a question about that. I don't remember if anybody proposed that. I would suggest to folks that we don't go that way. We don't even have a convener for the funding committee at the moment, as far as I know.
So just clarification on that, Joel. I added that this morning because I was just thinking, why don't we put together the funding committee without thinking of any issues that might bring up? So I apologize. So if I can, I'll just remove it from here because again, this is just something I added.
Waleed and then Michael.
Yeah, I just want to thank Sher Khan for joining the meeting from Dixon Hall. Sher, I just want to sort of remind our friends on the planning committee that Dixon Hall had Diane from Dixon Hall, who was amazing, who no longer works at Dixon Hall. was really, really supportive of the Regent Park SDP and helped us convene those meetings. So I'm hoping you could consider that if that's in addition to the communications working group that I know Adonis has been recruiting you to join. But it would be helpful to have one of our amazing agency stakeholders support us with that process. So
Yeah, sorry, can you hear me?
yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, we can hear
Yeah,
you.
so it's definitely my second meeting. I'm still getting the gist of how everything is sort of processing. I emailed Ismail to sort of give me an overview of all of the meetings, how it sort of the objectives of it. So I'm hoping we both connect next week, but I'm more than happy to obviously contribute in areas that are needed. But for now, the last meeting and this meeting was for me to observe how they like sort of all undergo the process of it and who's involved in the decision making and how these stakeholders and all these conversations are sort of consensed together as well.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for being open to that. I really appreciate it.
Folks, just I'm going to speak outside of facilitating as well. Just want to note that Ismail's role hasn't been an orienting role in the past, but we can maybe outside of this meeting we can address that. Whether maybe Ismail, if you're comfortable being part of that, I think that would be fine. But or even if you want to do it, but we should. I don't want to just sort of add stuff to his plate. Without just willy-nilly. So, but let's maybe address that outside of this meeting. I'm sort of saying that as his supervisor. So, Michael, go ahead.
So I just want to clarify how we're going to determine when this meeting for the business cases will happen.
Are people can we do that outside of this meeting also? And that would be a role that I think Ismail
all right,
could
but
take
how are we going to do this outside of the meeting?
Yeah, I think I would suggest we do it by email and that Ismail could phone you, Michael.
Okay.
Okay, thanks everyone. So now I'm going to propose that we, I want to note too, I didn't, just in the notes, there was a question last week about what's Ismail, what's the unspent money spreadsheet?
Oh, yeah.
Sorry, the unspent money spreadsheet. Oh, right. Okay. So I did send that out to the planning committee. Everyone should have received that in their emails. Let me see if I can pull it up right here. Is that what
No,
you're
no,
asking?
I just wanted to draw people's attention to it. That was is that the one from the city?
Yes, that is.
Okay, good. I just wasn't sure if that's what the name for it was. Okay, so just wanted to note to you, there was a question last week about money, about the city's accounting of money. And so we have received a response. So we've not, the response has been received some time ago. But we've now shared it with the planning committee. So I just want everybody to know that. So if you do have questions about money remaining from the 50K from previous years, you'll find the answers there. And Michael, if you have questions about that, we can find a way to get you that information as well. Okay, is that good for folks? Okay. And I see that the student survey circulation is just an announcement, so I hadn't kept that in my memory. Why don't we do that, and then we'll move on to the sharing session. Oh, sure. No, sorry, there was another item too that we had a pretty packed agenda, eh? Okay, yeah. So let's do the survey. Go ahead, Kyle.
Joel, I'd like to propose that we save this for another meeting. This might take some time, but I'll just treat this one as an announcement if that's okay.
Yeah.
So the evaluations, goals, and objectives for the planning committee. So planning committee 2023, we had a couple surveys going around, and so we wanted to revisit the document that we used to create those surveys, and that had two pieces to it. The first is a goal, and the second piece was the objectives. So goals and objectives relate to each other. So if I can ask people to visit this document and come prepared for a discussion that we can have after. And basically what we're looking to see is these bullet points over here underneath goals. So supporting the SDP stakeholder table, supporting and preparing for working groups, identifying information or expertise, basically our purpose statements. Do we still agree that evaluations should be measured against the purpose statement? Do we want to make any changes? And the second part, the objectives, again, just relates back to the goals. Are we happy with these objectives, these bullet points? Do we want to make any changes to that? But that's what that discussion will be. Michael, is there anything you wanted to add to this piece?
Yeah. So I would think that the objective discussion should occur in a few steps. We can do external scan. We can do a discussion of just reviewing what we've already got. And I don't know whether your document includes all the other suggestions that we've had or whatever. So there's going to be some reviewing. Then there's going to be obviously coming up with specific amendments. So I think that we should make it a fairly decent process rather than just sort of try to do it without going through the steps that we normally have in the past done. So maybe we can break it down a bit so that maybe one meeting we can do the goals and the external scan, and then the next meeting we can do the objectives. But I just want to make sure we do it the way that this is somewhat similar to how we've done it in the past.
Hey, Mike, thank you. So that is the announcement for that. So everyone just please visit this document, look at the goals, look at the objectives. If there's anything that you don't agree with, or if there's anything that you think is missing, please come prepared to the next planning committee meeting to talk about that. And we'll make those changes there. The other announcement, Abba, I'm not sure if you're still here. I know you were on this call earlier.
I see Abba here.
I'm still here.
Perfect. Do you mind
so
just
just
sharing?
to clarify on the
Michael, just a
objective stuff.
moment. Just we'll come back because we've Ismail started a new one. We'll come back to you, okay, Michael?
So Abba, I'm not sure if you're willing to bring the group up to speed on what's going on with the survey. I know you did some work with Jeff yesterday and this morning. Did you want to share that with the group?
Sure. Jeff and I started creating the survey. Jeff made it into a Google form last night, and we've just been editing it to send out hopefully soon. When I sent it to Ismail last night, there were just a few minor changes that I needed to make. And I think that I've perfected it now, so it could be ready to be sent out, but I'll just send it to Ismail again to proofread and make sure that everything looks okay. I'm not sure what else I should add.
I think, well, thank you, Abba. I think the discussion around adding or removing questions, I think we've passed that stage. Members did get a chance to kind of voice their opinions. And again, if anyone feels strongly about adding something, please feel free to go ahead and voice your opinion. But I do want to recognize that we had time to kind of fine tune this survey. And I want to get it out there while we still have Jeff and Abba over here so they can be part of that process as well. So over here in the group, I'd like to ask if it's okay that I use our existing planning committee email list to circulate the survey and get responses, because again, the survey was about the planning committee and having in-person and hybrid meetings of the planning committee. So as long as I can get a thumbs up, I see Waleed with his hand up. So Waleed, go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to thank Abba and Jeff for the amazing work. Thank you. Thank you so much for presenting at planning committees, for soliciting input onto the questions. I'm very comfortable with the questions. I just want to make sure that it's accessible, not just only on Google Form, but also having physical copies for those that would like one. But I think we should move forward. And thanks once again, Abba.
Okay, so the question is, shall we send this to the planning committee mailing list? Any responses to that question? Any other suggestions?
Hello?
Go ahead, Michael.
So on that item, I mean, you did say there was a fairly long list. It wasn't as short as I thought it might be. But if there's anybody else from the working groups who is very active and we feel should also be able to comment on whether they would ever attend planning committee meetings, then maybe there's some other names that could be added. But it did sound like it was the list you described, where you described it, sounded fairly like it might already include those people.
So the mailing list has about 46 or 48 people, and we'll be sending it to the entire mailing list. Sorry, Joel, I think you wanted to add something to that.
No, you can carry on.
So yeah, we'll be sent to that list, and this is an updated list, Michael. So these are people who haven't already blocked us. So we'll be hearing from them, and we'll see what they have to say.
Okay, so I think we'll carry forward with that. I haven't heard any concerns.
So I just wanted to clarify back about the objectives and goals and external scan. So I'm always not sure what's included in documents after they've been changed. So maybe I'll circulate the version of the document that does include the external scan so people can also look at that.
Michael, sure. I do want to say that the document I shared did have the external factors on there, but we wanted to take it one step at a time, right? So I didn't want to overwhelm everyone.
I'll look at it, and if it's basically the same as what I thought it should be, then I won't send anything else out.
Okay, thank you, Michael. Back to you, Joel. I think I'm done with the items. Thank you,
Okay,
Joel.
so we got 15 minutes left, folks. I just want to open up a space. If people want to share anything that's important to them in regards to the very painful events that have happened recently in the community. Shayna, go ahead. Yeah, you're muted, Shayna. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah.
Now you're good.
Okay, thank you, Joel. Yeah, so when the incident happened, I first was thinking, my heart was racing so much when I heard there was a shooting. At first, I was even thinking it might be my child. So I went running over there. Thank God it was not my kid, but luckily, like the sad part of it is that it was somebody that I know. It really touched me a lot. Like I was really traumatized by the whole thing, so saddened. And then when I was with Waleed, talking to Waleed about this, the next thing that I had witnessed had really, really made me upset. Waleed, can you please remind me, what was that guy's name from the city? Is it Richard something?
Richard Kerwin?
Yeah, so Richard Kerwin had come up to Waleed while we were talking about what was happening, how we were traumatized. He came up talking to Waleed so disrespectfully and asking him about, like basically he was accusing him of something about something Waleed lied about and why Waleed is doing this. Like there's a place and time for things to be like talked about. I don't understand why a city worker, or should I say, what is it? What a city worker feel like it's okay for him when people are traumatized in their community and dealing with a lot of grief, for him to come up to a community advocate or a community, somebody who's helping basically the community cope with their issue, come up to him and accuse him of things, or talk to him about whatever issue he has. If it's not to help us about our grief, I do not understand why that man had like the audacity to feel like he's big you know, and it's okay for him to come up to Waleed and say what he had to say. And then when I opened my mouth and said, like, this is not the time or the place, like, don't you see mothers are grieving, for him to just walk out, not apologize to me, not apologize to Waleed, not say, let's talk another time, and be so disrespectful. Why? Because he feels like he's big because he always, I'm hearing all the time that he's holding the city's money. I don't care if he's the biggest billionaire in the whole wide world. There's no need for him to be disrespecting the community like that. There's no need for anyone in this city or in any other city to be disrespecting a human being like that. Like, I'm so upset by this. It's so, you know, and the funny thing is they keep saying that Waleed is the one harassing them or whatever. But it seems to me that it's them who are harassing him. It's him and TCHC and everybody else who wants to disrespect him wherever they see him that are harassing Waleed, you know, and the city and whoever, like they're the ones that are harassing Waleed, and that needs to stop. That needs to stop. I'm just so fed up with this whole thing. I don't know what you guys like have to say about this, but that's what I witnessed, and I'm just still traumatized and shocked by the whole thing and really upset about it. Thank you for listening.
Thanks for sharing that, Shayna. I would ask if we do want to have further reflections on this, we don't continue to name names, and that we not make it a personal thing. But there are some issues that I've heard Shayna raise, and I think that if people want to discuss that at that broader level, I'm not saying we shouldn't do that. Just want to be concerned about continuing to personalize things. That's all. Shayna and then Waleed.
Thank you, Shayna. Thanks for.
Oh, Shayna, is that an old hand, Shayna? We can put it down if you're.
Yeah, I forgot to.
Okay.
Yeah.
Waleed and then Miguel.
I just want to say I have a lot of respect for Shayna. Thank you so much for, you know, expressing what you saw and setting expectations of how we should treat each other, especially in public. I was shocked by that interaction. I thought it was very unprofessional, especially because I know the family. I know, like, I was really, really shocked when the youngest member of the family came to the scene and just didn't know that his family was impacted by this tragedy. And I was very, you know, I was so concerned about how we could collectively heal as a community. And I did not expect that level of discourse or that sort of disrespectful approach that encounter that happened, and the approach that was done by paid staff of the city. So I will be filing a complaint about that interaction so that no one in our community will ever have to experience that. And I'll find out how to go about doing that. I also just want to reflect that this is a tragedy, but we also need to focus on the family that's been impacted. I will be meeting with the family tomorrow to make sure that they get all the support they need. I want us as a community to come together, either through a memorial of some sort to grieve collectively because it traumatized all of us. I'm going to put a link to a GoFundMe page that friends of the family set up. We're trying to raise about $35,000 for expenses that relate to this tragedy. There was more than one person that passed away. So the father and the son need to be buried. The mother needs to be better supported. And the son that passed away had a beautiful daughter. She's just 1 year old. And I think it's important for us to make sure that she's taken care of. She's just 1 year old. So I posted this GoFundMe yesterday in various WhatsApp groups in the community, and I emailed a couple of folks. We're almost there. We're almost at our $35,000 goal. I believe about $23,000 was raised so far. So any donation will be helpful, whether it's $10, $15, or $20. So donate what you can. This is what community is all about. The last thing that I want to say is I think it's important for us to advocate to ensure that we have we better support groups in our community or residents in our community that want to intervene and support our fellow neighbors, whether it's through mental health supports. And this is why I'm very passionate about having that item be considered at the next SDP meeting in April, because I worry. I couldn't sleep properly. I worry that if we do not have funds released by the city to help residents with these interventions, that we might deal with another crisis in the coming months. And I want us to do whatever we can to save lives or to ensure that we don't lose lives this year in 2024 and for the years to come. I love my community. I love Regent Park. And again, I want to thank Shana. You know, I was fasting, and usually when you fast, you don't raise your voice, you don't get upset. You focus on your spirituality. And I was so tired and emotionally drained. And Shana, thanks for speaking up. Thank you for pointing to not just the truth, but setting the tone, setting expectations of how we should treat each other in public. So I'm really disappointed about what happened, and I hope that in the future, folks who are employed by the city or by TCHC or by any organization act professionally and do not attack members of the community in public. I was really, really shocked that happened. So, and lastly, I just want to say that I really worry about the surviving members of the family. And I hope that we can work with the community crisis unit at the city to make sure they're better supported. I don't know if they want to live in the same unit after experiencing that trauma. So you folks might not be aware, but there are policies in place that allow for emergency transfers for the family as well. So I'm hoping they don't have to relive this nightmare every day. So those are some reflections that have been in my mind. And thank you so much, Joel, for facilitating this conversation and creating this space for this important conversation. Thank you.
Miguel.
Yes, thank you, Wally. Thank you, Shana, for bringing this important discussion. The behavior of the city public servants, which is very questionable. I would like to share my personal experience. Last Friday, I was invited to attend a meeting to discuss budget for the city of Toronto with TCSC residents. And I was greeted by 8 police officers.
Miguel, can I just for a second, I just want to note, really, we wanted to have this time to focus on the incident that happened on Tuesday, as it's been so traumatizing for the community. I understand that it's opening up other stuff for you. So I just want to note that, just note that for the whole group.
So my intention was to tell Mayor Olivia Chow that in phases 4 and 5, we know we need more RGI units. Why I'm saying this, Joel? Because of the matter that will happen of the decision whether or not the family will stay in Regent Park. If you go to TCAC right now and ask them for a transfer, they will give you offers outside Regent Park, and they will be not your first choices. When I asked them why there's no opportunities for people to stay in Regent Park if you are overhoused or underhoused, the reason is that they have no obligation to give us more than the 3,000 units, and they're just throwing out 600, and they're proposing adding 600 more RGI units. So you see, my friend, if we need to be bold and united to talk the topics that are important, which translates in issues that affects our community in regards to moving in between Regent Park. Instead, we're seeing more influence of rich condo owners coming to Regent Park, displacing the originals, the residents of this community. So our presence is being minimized. They're taking advantage of that situation. City officials are being abusive, authoritarians, borderline tyrants. That's my word, I'm gonna use it. And that's not the behavior we expect from civil servants. And it's time to stand up. Thank you, Shana, for standing up for defending Waleed from the attacks of Richard. It was not enough. It was inappropriate to refresh his mistakes. You know, everybody makes mistakes, but it's not the place to call out Waleed in the middle of a tragedy that has affected the family, the community. Us, I was in shock. I was so sad. We celebrated a year free of gun violence, and then this happens. And you know what happened? Right on my freaking birthday, I turned 59, and this is what happened. Bad news, 2 dead in this community. So again, I want to remind you that my intentions on going to see Mayor Olivia Chow was just simply to ask, where are the RGI units that we need for to increase the presence of more TCSC residents in this community, rather than they go outside of Regent Park. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Just note, folks, it is we've reached our time. If folks need to leave, obviously some people have been leaving already because of their schedules, but you can leave. And we'll wrap up the conversation shortly. Thanks, folks, for sharing. Shana?
Thank you, Miguel, for advocating for the community. We really appreciate you.
Yeah.
Thanks for advocating for RGI units. It is very important. And you guys know me. Like, if I see somebody being wronged, it doesn't matter who it is. It could be the president, the prime minister. I am big enough to tell them that they're wrong. You know, it's the least that I can do of what's happening in front of me. And we should all be feeling this, like doing the same thing and feeling the same way about issues when we see it. Thank you, Waleed, for always being there for the community and speaking out for the community. And as long as and as well as everybody else who's always, you know, doing good things for the community. Thank you all and I appreciate you all for speaking out for the community. But yeah, things like this, like I said again, and I'm gonna say it again, we need to make sure that people who are advocating for the community should not be targeted, should not be put down, and should not be told to leave the position they have just because they're advocating for the community. You know, and just because the city gives us a chicken change and think that they're helping us with their chicken change, it's not enough. It's not enough. This community needs a lot more help. You know, there's so much trauma that we are always going through. There's so much mothers always crying. You know, it's so unfair. There's so much children without jobs. It's really so unfair for us to have to continue to go through this. You know, and it's not fair for the city to be dictating whatever little change they give us. And it's not fair for them to say they're doing things about mental health and for our community when they're really not doing enough. They need to do more, and they need to do it with respect without dictating every little thing that, we want to do for our community. Thank you guys for listening.
Don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. And please follow our social media platforms. And for more information, please visit our website.